Update, brought to you by Simcox Advocates, advising businesses and families since 1949. Visit simcox.com or call 690 300. Manx Radio's Update with Andy Wint.
First of May, good evening, it's 5:30. This is Update for Friday, 13th of October 2023 from Manx Radio. 30 minutes to look at the latest news on the island, background to the news and sport, business, Sea-Watch, travel updates and the newsmakers in person this evening. Where has the nurses' money come from? The Sexual Offences Act is better late than never. Australian tubeworms found on boats in Peel Harbour. DIY SOS for Lockie Kirk. And for the first time in 25 years, Manx herring has been landed in the Isle of Man.
Man Benham for all your business and legal needs.
First of all, at 29 minutes ahead of 6 o'clock, the Update News headlines. First to my Chanel Suku.
First to my. Another £1.4 million is set to be spent revamping Douglas Promenade. The aim is to have the works completed by March 2025. Government House has announced the death of Lady Haddocks, the wife of former Lieutenant Governor Vice Admiral Sir Paul Haddocks. Affectionately known as Penny, Lady Haddocks died with her family by her side. And there's due to be a weekend closure on the Spring Valley roundabout in Douglas while resurfacing works take place. The junction, also known as Fort North, will close from 6 a.m. on Saturday until 6 p.m. on Sunday. In international news, an evacuation order covering more than 1 million people in Gaza has been described by the United Nations as impossible. Israel's given the instruction ahead of what's wildly expected to be the start of a ground offensive. Energy bills could be on the up again. UK wholesale gas prices are at their highest level since mid-February. And forecasters are warning parts of the UK could see sub-zero temperatures this weekend. Northern and rural parts of Scotland could have lows of -4 degrees. Those were your headlines. News at 6.
Man Benham. Contact us by phone, video call, email or face-to-face. We're happy to connect with you. Manx Radio Weather with Manx Glass and Glazing.
Garamaya, thank you. Chanel from the Ronaldsway Met Office. There is a strong wind warning in the North Irish Sea. State of sea moderate this evening. Some late brightness and blue sky around. A fresh northwesterly wind. After dark, the wind will turn fresh to strong, bringing some showers. Less breezy towards dawn and some clear intervals overnight and 6 Celsius. For Jasan, Saturday, sunny intervals, scattered showers, a moderate to fresh northwest wind, top temperature 11, and the wind will strengthen in the evening down to 7 through the night. For Jaduni, showers at first on Sunday, then dry with some sunny spells, daylight maximum 10 Celsius. Tide still on the way out, low water in about 20 minutes time at 5 to 6, sunset 27 minutes past 6, high water 13 minutes to midnight, low water tomorrow morning is at 12 minutes past 6 and sunrise in the morning at 17 minutes to 8.
Visit the Manx Glass and Glazing website and see a range of products from windows to doors, mirrors to splashbacks. manxglass.com.
Before the news, just a quick word about the Mountain Road. There was a road traffic collision earlier on today. There's a diversion to Thalty Will on the Matrix sign from Hilbury to the mountain, so just be aware that Matrix sign went up about 20 minutes ago. Government's aiming to bring in the Sexual Offences and Obscene Publications Act by the end of this year, so says Home Affairs Minister Jane Paul Wilson MHK, who says other legislation has taken priority so far. It follows criticism from the High Bailiff, who had to sentence a man who'd sent out explicit content to 2 people he believed were children under powers designed to combat nuisance phone calls.
The aim is to have the Act in by the end of this year, and the reason this takes time is because it's not as straightforward as just switching on the Act and it coming into effect. There's a lot of work that goes on around training for police, prosecutions. There's a lot of work that goes on around the guidance around implementation of this legislation. And in fact, what we did prioritise was the domestic abuse Abuse Act in Home Affairs. So all of the people that are involved in working up and getting ready to deliver the Sexual Offences and Obscene Publications Act are the same people who did all of the work around domestic abuse, which we managed to bring into effect at the beginning of this year. And as I'm sure listeners will be aware, we've seen put to significant use since it's been in law, and is making a real difference to being able to address those domestic abuse offences. But the work that went into the preparation for that, again, in terms of training, processes, making sure that everybody understood all of the procedures, court forms, there was a huge amount of background work that went into it, so that when the legislation went live, we were pretty confident we were in a good place to actually make it work in practice. And that's exactly the process we're doing with sexual offences now. I think the High Bailiff is quite entitled to reference the fact that there is legislation coming that will make a difference, and it's absolutely the case that our sexual offences legislation was out of date, and so it is the right thing that we have modernised that legislation. But I think we also have a responsibility when we bring in new laws to make sure that we're on top of how they're going to work in practice, so they are as effective as possible.
An unwanted arrival from down under looks set to become a problem for Manx boat owners. Invasive, non-native Australian tubeworms have been found on the hulls of a pair of fishing boats from Peel, which were taken out of the water for winter. Michelle Haywood MHK has political responsibility for the Department of Environment, Food and Agriculture.
DEFRA got called in and the officers have taken samples, and believe it or not, there's a whole skill in identifying where your tubeworms come from, and it turns out that these are originally from Australia. They're a non-native species. They have been recorded around the British Islands up to now. We know Whitehaven has them, and now they've made it over to the Isle of Man as well. They'll have come through either attached to a vessel or in some bilge water, completely inadvertently. Somebody has brought them across, and what happens when they're here is that they will breed in warmer waters. And of course, we've just had the warmest summer on record. Boats moored in Peel Marina would have experienced much higher temperatures than normal, and that's allowed these worms to breed and to spread across the underneath of the boats. And for boat owners, that's quite an issue because it'll slow down the speed of the boat. They'll be using more power to get through the water, and it can clog up things like water intakes, the sea chests into the boats, and so that could affect the running of the engines as well, and whether the engine actually manages to cool itself properly. When they're underwater, they're actually quite soft and squishable, and so we're just looking at the moment. It might be that we need to tell people to go and drive their boats a bit faster for a while. So boats that are frequently used probably won't be having the same sort of problem because these things get ripped off. But boats that have been left floating in the marinas, and we all know of boats here, both in Douglas and Peel, that just don't go out of the harbours very often. So those boats left floating will be the ones that probably are most at risk. And so we will need to lift those out and clean them off. But we're working at the moment with DOI Harbours to put in place a plan for what comes next and how we deal with it. Did talk through some eradication options, and it would effectively mean putting in some sort of molluscicide, some sort of toxin that would pretty much kill everything inside the harbour, and that feels like probably a bit of overkill at this stage. The questions are, what will be the impacts of having these around, and if they're in large numbers, how do we deal with that? Do we put something in place that's we require, like some places do, boat owners to lift their boats out once a year and check them and treat them, or do we do something more radical? And I think we're probably more likely to go down we'll just have to manage this issue going forward.
Update brought to you by Simcox Advocates.
22 minutes now before 6. A new offer's been made to island nurses who are planning to strike next week, but where's the money come from? The action's been paused while the new proposal from Manx Care is considered by members of the union, the Royal College of Nursing. Treasury Minister Dr. Allinson MHK won't be drawn on the figures involved, but warns it all comes at a potential cost.
Unfortunately, there is no magic money tree. What Treasury have been doing is working very closely with the Department of Health and Social Care to provide an adequate budget for providing health services and social services on our island. As you're probably aware, the negotiations are between the various unions, including the Royal College of Nursing and Manx Care. But what we've tried to do is help them as much as possible. Now, at the moment, we have, during this financial year, an extremely tight budget. We are drawing down on reserves to the tune of £150 million, and this is extra money that's going to need to be found within our existing budget. So Treasury have taken that responsibility to do as much as possible to try to help Manx Care resolve this current situation. We absolutely appreciate that it is imperative that we have adequate recruitment and retention of our key frontline staff, whether that be teachers, nurses, doctors or police officers, but we have to do that within a cost envelope. I think sometimes people don't realise that by putting extra resources into one area, we have to reprioritise funding on another. We, like anyone on the island, have seen massive increases in costs due to inflation, and also responding to that, people wanting increased wages. But to afford that, I think certainly in next year's budget, there will be some hard decisions that need to be made to make sure that we stick to our medium-term financial plan in terms of stopping the drawdown on reserves, reducing that over the next 3 years and returning to a much more balanced budget going forward, because we only have a certain set amount in reserves. And certainly as Treasury Minister, I am very conscious that I'm the custodian of the taxpayers' purse and that we can't continue to remain reliant on that. If this is accepted by the employees, we can certainly then calculate how much it will cost us.
Manx fishermen have started to catch herring in Manx waters thanks to new UK quotas that could enable a commercially viable Manx fishery for the first time in 25 years. The vessel, our Sarah Jane, brought 12 tonnes of herring ashore, part of an initial quota of 100 tonnes. You'll hear skipper Melvin Reid first, owner A.D. Kinraid.
So when I was a kid, the herring fishing was huge in the Isle of Man, and now we're trying to reintroduce it, hopefully into the restaurants and get people to eat Manx herring again. This year we've managed to get our own gear, our own nets, with some help from the government. We've got to do our bit now, which is actually go out and catch them. The whole thing is a fantastic experience.
I think this is my 43rd year or 44th year fishing, but all I've ever done is like scallops and queenies. Well, I think we all nearly fell over the side today. We were like kids. When you can see a decent net full of herring coming behind the boat, and you think, oh, this is amazing. We could get this 100 tonne and get more next year. It would mean like maybe 3 or 4 or 5 boats could stay and catch this herring, so everybody would be happy then, like.
Sea Watch with the Isle of Man Steam Packet Company.
Motor vessel Manxman left Heysham at 26 minutes past 2. She'll be into Douglas in the next 10-15 minutes or so and on to the Linkspan. The evening departure at 8.15's Ben McCree to Heysham, getting there around midnight, departing at 2.15 back to Douglas at 6 tomorrow morning. The fastcraft Manannan left Douglas at 22 minutes past 1. She's safely on the Linkspan in Liverpool, departing in about half an hour's time or so, 6:15, getting back to Douglas at 9:45. Tomorrow morning's departures, 8:45 Manxman to Heysham, 10 o'clock Manannan to Liverpool.
Follow the Steam Packet on Twitter for the latest sailing information.
The Manx community is being urged to come together to DIY SOS style to help a teenager who sustained severe head injuries in a car crash last year. The family of Lockie Kirk are looking for assistance to renovate their home, dubbed Bala Lockie, so it can accommodate the 19-year-old's needs when he's able to return to the Isle of Man. Here's Lockie's dad, Daniel Kirk.
Lockie's doing really well. We've just had his 12-weekly review, and he's doing great. They're pleased with his progress. He's not quite walking yet, but he's using less support through the staff that are helping him. He's got a way to go yet. The last we spoke, we asked for help with a quantity surveyor, and we had a few people call up, and a guy called Paul Whitley came and he did our quantity surveying, which means we now have an rough idea of cost. So we've set up a page really to ask for more help with perhaps tradesmen that are willing to give a bit of their time, and suppliers, and see what they can do for us. Since we've set the page up, posted a video on Lockie's progress, like a slideshow, had over 35,000 likes. So we've just got so many people offering to help. So we've set up an email, balalockie@gmail.com. So yeah, people want to get in touch with us, they can do that. We've also started to take the numbers and the names that we got in the comments, and we're just hopefully going to start to contact them. We're going to have an open night where people can come along and see how they can help, and they can ask us what we need, and yeah, hopefully it should be a good night. He's excited. When he reaches me up, he'll say, oh, can you show me how the extension's going? He's really keen to see it and to see the progress.
Manx Radio Business Briefing.
At 16 minutes before 6, St James Place shares plunged after the wealth manager confirmed it's reviewing its fees and charges structure for clients to comply with new consumer duty rules that took effect over the summer. Responding to press speculation written today. It said the programme includes an assessment of our fees and charging models to ensure we operate with a simple and scalable charging platform for the long term. And for a full daily market review, go to ramseycrookall.com. Despite concerns from rivals like PlayStation maker Sony and regulators over competition in the gaming industry, Microsoft's completed its $69 billion takeover of Call of Duty maker Activision Blizzard in the gaming industry's biggest ever deal. It comes as Microsoft, which owns the Xbox gaming console, was given the green light for the global deal after the UK regulator, the Competition and Markets Authority, approved it. It said its concerns have been addressed after it blocked the original bid. Microsoft's gaming's chief exec Phil Spencer said securing Activision was incredible, and whether you play on Xbox, PlayStation, Nintendo, PC or mobile, you'll be welcome even if Xbox isn't where you play your favourite franchise. Activision Blizzard's chief exec Bobby Kotick confirmed he'll step down at the end of the year.
The Stock Market Report, brought to you by Ramsey Crookall.
UK and European stock markets closed lower as global sentiment falters. The US dollar held firm, oil rose and gold jumped as conflict in the Middle East lifted safe haven demand for the metal. The numbers from Ramsey Crookall at the close in London down 0.6% at 7,599. The DAX in Frankfurt down 1.5% at 15,186. The Dow Jones Industrial a short time ago in New York City up 0.1% at 33,672. The Nasdaq Tech Stocks Index down almost a percentage point at 13,445, and the S&P 500 in the Midwest down 0.33% at 4,334. In the exchange markets, the British pound sterling trading at $1 21.3 cents, €1 15.5 cents, and 23 South African rand 3.8 cents. In commodities, gold's up 2 9/10% at $1,921 per troy ounce, and a barrel of Brent crude up almost 4% at $89.59.
You've got an investment plan?
Yeah, Mike set it up.
But don't you need loads of money to do that?
Not this one. It's called Shearwater from Ramsey Crookall, and you pay in monthly as little as £100. So it's like saving regularly, really helping us invest in the future. For a house, or the kids' education.
£100 a month? I could easily do that.
You should. The sooner you start, the better.
Invest in your future with as little as £100 a month. Shearwater from Ramsey Crookall, the island's investment specialist for 75 years. Call 717171 or visit ramseycrookall.com. Licensed and regulated by the Isle of Man Financial Services Authority.
Isle of Man Water Sports. Weather with Manx Glass and Glazing.
Here's the relevant information. If this weekend you're sailing, kayaking, windsurfing and paddleboarding, sea swimming, diving or surfing, sea temperature 15 degrees Celsius. And the wind for tomorrow, Saturday, northwesterly force 4 or 5, occasionally force 6, wave height 0.8 metres, wave period 7 seconds, high tide midday 13. And for Sunday, the wind is northerly force 3 or 4, wave height 0.3 metres, wave period 9 seconds, high tide midday 38.
Manx Glass and Glazing can supply and install single, double and triple glazing. Call 674 573 or visit the showroom on the Snugborough Trading Estate. Update brought to you by Simcox Advocates, advising businesses and families since 1949. Visit simcox.com or call 690 300.
It's 12 minutes before 6, live from Douglas in the Isle of Man. This is Manx Radio. The Isle of Man's children's champion says she's not shocked by findings made in a report about children's social care services. Released this week, the Ofsted report found that services for children in care need significant improvement. And Kerry Sharp MLC says this echoes what she's found.
One of the challenges that a children's champion often gets is, well, you know, you're not a children's professional, you're not a member of government, but I was confident that the observations that I'd made over the year that I'd been children's champion were correct. Then I didn't actually see the Ofsted report until fairly recently, and when I did, I was relieved that my observations had been ratified, really. It's government and Parliament who have to wake up to the idea that, you know, they are corporate parents, but also the wider community at large. I think we haven't been having these national conversations about children in care. I know that work is now in progress in certain areas, which is good, but I mean, I would throw that back at them and say, well, why weren't you doing something about it before? From their point of view, they would say, well, we haven't got the resources. But again, I would say, well, you need to be shouting louder, because these children have got no one to speak up for them on their behalf. Take accommodation as an example. I was on the Tynwald committee where Tynwald very clearly told government back in 2018-19, sort out accommodation for care leavers. It's not good enough. Nothing happened. Something I asked for when I was on the Housing and Communities Board. David Ashford was the Minister for Health and Social Care, so he obviously knows that this is an issue. I would urge the board to work with Department of Health and Manx Care to sort this out as a standalone issue.
Manx Radio Sport.
Master My Dave Moore.
Master My. Dean Harrison says he's close to announcing who he'll be riding for next season. He won the senior TT in 2019 with the Dow Racing team, but after 7 years with the outfit, he parted company with them this summer. He's being replaced by Danny Buchan as their British Superbike Championship rider in 2024. Since he left Dow, he's been racing in the Supersport class of the Short Circuit Series, and as for next year, Harrison says everything is in place.
Today, everything's all sorted, and I'm looking forward to a new challenge of next year, really, of new bikes, new team and things like that. So it's all in place, sort of thing. It's just not obviously been announced yet.
In football, third take on second in the Canada Life Premier League when Ramsey hosts St Mary's. Both sides are unbeaten this season. Laxey, who've played fewer games than anyone else, will look to leapfrog Corinthians in the standings when they meet at Glen Road tomorrow. Meanwhile, FC Isle of Man will be looking to make it 3 wins on the bounce when they play away at West Didsbury and Charlton. In rugby, Douglas are off island this weekend when they travel to Altrincham Kersal for their Regional 2 North West clash. In Counties 4 ADM Lancashire Cheshire, Douglas are away at bottom of the league Chorley. The big game in hockey this weekend is in the Mixed Premier between league leaders Vikings and Backers, who trail them by 2 points, while Valkyries will seek to continue their winning run when they play Harlequins. It's top versus bottom in netball Santander Premier Division on Sunday, when league leaders Route 1 Connections will be hoping to make it 3 wins out of 3 when they take on bottom club Simcox Red Eagles.
Manx Radio Travel, driven by Quayside Tyres and Service Centre.
Inbound at Ronalds Way, the 5:25 Loganair from Manchester came in about 5 minutes ago. Next inbound's the 6 o'clock EasyJet from Bristol, due in 10 minutes late, it says so on the board. Then it's the 10 to 8 Loganair from London City on time. The 5 to 8 Loganair returning patient transfer plane from Liverpool on time. At the 8:30 EasyJet from Gatwick, currently showing on time. Outbound 6 o'clock EasyJet to Manchester on time. By the way, the 5:30 EasyJet to Liverpool is delayed until 6 o'clock. Then also scheduled out at 6 is the Loganair to Liverpool on time. The 6:30 EasyJet to Bristol is delayed for about 10 minutes or so. Then the 9 o'clock EasyJet to London Gatwick currently showing on time. Remember, Spring Valley Roundabout's going to be closed this weekend, tomorrow and Sunday from 6 o'clock Saturday morning till 6 o'clock Sunday evening for resurfacing work. Diversions will be in place, and the roundabout's also closed next weekend. Another date for your diary. Just down the road, Newcastle Town Road's closed between Spring Valley Roundabout and the bottom of Richmond Hill for resurfacing with associated diversions. Hillside Avenue Douglas closed through to Circular Road for adjacent office window replacement. Temporary lights on Glen Crutchery Road at the roundabout with Victoria Road for resurfacing. Traffic along Glen Crutchery can't turn down Victoria Road. In Port St Mary, temporary lights at the junction of Queen's Road and Park Road for gas main work. Little Mill Road and Ballacottia Road Onchan closed for ditching work. Queen Street's closed in Castletown for resurfacing work, and Station Road Port Erin closed between Brighton Street and Strand Road for repairs in the crossing area.
H&H Motorcycles.im for all your motorcycle requirements. Southgate Industrial Estate, opposite Quayside Tyres. Call 665646.
A Royal Artillery veteran has left the Isle of Man saying he feels like part of the family. Daniel McNeil spent a week walking around the coastline as part of his 16,000-mile journey of a lifetime.
The island's been absolutely spectacular. I've seen a lot of beautiful coastline. The beaches were beautiful. There's a lot of wilderness. Some of the kindness that I've received has been absolutely amazing. I've really enjoyed the south, especially like Port Erin and around there. Port St Mary. Love the people. It's just been absolutely wonderful, and it's been a pleasure. I felt felt as if I've been brought in as one of your own. It's like I've joined the family, and I haven't camped once. People have been putting me up in their houses and stuff like that. There's a special thanks to Gav as well that went round the island. He went and dropped his van. I stayed in his van. Just absolutely amazing. Every time when I went there and I opened his van, there was like some food and water and stuff like that inside it. I also cashed in my cash donations as well today, and it was £425 just in cash alone, which is absolutely incredible. That's probably been the best place that I've had so far in the UK for cash donations. Hats off to the people of Isle of Man. I was awarded a medal by the Governor of the Isle of Man. It was really special. It was a special moment. My first award for something like this, for the first time as well. It did really put into perspective what I've actually achieved. I think I'm just more looking forward to having a cup of tea with my mum, to be honest. It's been an honour walking your island, and I've really, really loved it, and I can't wait to come back.
The Isle of Man in 30 minutes. Update on Manx Radio with Andy Wint.
And Isle of Man residents calling for changes to the drug policy on the Isle of Man. Ray Lakeman's 2 sons died in 2014 after overdosing on MDMA they'd bought on the dark web.
We're seeing more and more young people getting involved, so we need to look at new ways to look after our, and I think that one of the ways that we can do this is by reforming the drug laws, taking the power away from organised criminals, and hopefully making a better future for our children. I think if our current drug laws worked and it was preventing the kind of accident that happened to my sons, then I think that would be perfect. We'd be living in a perfect world. If you could actually stop people from selling the drugs which are the current policies, then we'd be living in a wonderful world. But unfortunately, we live in a world where people want to take drugs, where there is a market for them, and that market at the moment is run by criminals who are making the situation worse, and it's our laws that are allowing this to flourish. The fact that my boys were able to get their hands on drugs that were unregulated, had it been a regulation dose and people know that their regulation dose exists, they would still be with us now. There are people who will take drugs. We should be looking after them. We need to regulate. If they had have had a regulated dose, they wouldn't be dead. They wouldn't be here with us now.
That's it for Update Tonight, compiled from the resources of Manx Radio's news department. Thanks to newsreader Chanel Suku, producer Beth Espy. After the news, Dave Moore is here with Friday Sport. Chris Kinley, greatest hits and how he came with some jazz at 9. Have a great weekend. I'm back 5:30 on Monday.
WIN